Good morning. Welcome to Unitarian Universalist Church West here in Brookfield, Wisconsin, which is the best place to be on a Sunday morning. Here, yeah, in person or with us online. It's just great to be together. We have come through a week of rain, snow, slush, sun, and wind, as we Wisconsin people call a springtime experience. It is good to be together on traditional territory inhabited at various times by the native peoples of the Seven Council Fires, Ho-Chunk, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Menominee, Peoria, and Miami nations. May we humbly be grateful for the privilege of living here. As an anti-racist faith community, we acknowledge our need to address the racism which continues to lead to the violent deaths and oppression of Jews, Black and Indigenous people, and other people of color. Anti-Semitism, racism, and colonialism continue to perpetuate inequalities, injustices, poverty, and exclusion in our society and our neighborhoods. And it is our work to dismantle these systems of oppression. As a welcoming congregation to gay, lesbian, transgendered, bisexual, and queer plus people, we continue to address ongoing homophobia, violence, and unfair legislation targeting them. With this awareness close to our bones, we commit ourselves to the values of equity, racial justice, and right relations. My name is Kathy White, and I serve on UUCW's Board of Trustees. My pronouns are she and her. I'm part of a family online message group, and the topic this past week was a power outage at the home of my son Greg and his partner Tanya that they share in Gusuamico. His pets, you'll have to ask me about that in the coffee room, were getting cold. And what he had in the was thawing, so he was concerned. Okay. Since none of us volunteered to take in the pets and open our freezers, he bought a generator and saved the day. My life is never boring. Today, we're engaging with the monthly theme, the Gift of Interdependence. This congregation expands beyond these walls, as each week there are 50 to 60 folks joining us virtually. From many places at different times, we are creating a community of companions who choose to walk life's path together. So wherever you are right now, whatever your age or color, whatever your gender identity, whatever your chosen beliefs, whoever you love, you are welcome here. I say again, it's so good to be together. Here's a bit of housekeeping. This is a multi-generational community, and there are a variety of ways for all ages to participate. Our nursery is open, and after time for all ages, those who wish are invited to go to their classes. And always, all ages are welcome here in the sanctuary. So there is a worship exploration table, definitely being explored, where there are some activities for those who choose to stay here. You can also go to the community room where you can listen in on the service. If you're a newcomer here, I hope you picked up a flyer on the way in that tells you all about what to expect and how to connect. We'd love to have you fill out the welcome side of the yellow paper you received when you entered, and hope to see you at the newcomers table in the foyer after the service. And if you're online and want more information, please email us at visitor@uucw.org. All of you out there in virtual land are invited to participate in sharing joys and concerns, and you can do that by texting something to Reverend Julie. There's a time for coffee, tea, and conversation following the service. We know that not every space or noise level suits everybody, so find a comfortable place to hang out. can be here in the community room, in the library, and then challenge yourself to talk to someone you have not yet met. If you want to discuss the sermon, take a beverage and head to room UL4. Let's continue to build community together. And now, the Jeannie Baker, who's part of our stewardship team, is here to make this week's pie drawing.
Hi, everybody. Throughout our Mission Possible Pledge campaign, the stewardship team has randomly selected a name from those who have submitted their pledges, and the lucky winners have received a homemade pie made by a stewardship team member. This morning, we're going to select another winner from the most recently received pledges. So, oh, yeah. Who wants pie? All right. Oh, Kathy's gonna, yeah. Yeah, get a good one. Okay. Leslie and Roger Frick, who I believe are in Florida. So we'll figure this out. We'll figure this out. Congratulations, Leslie and Roger. The stewardship team will get in touch with you about your preferred pie flavor, key lime, and deliver arrangements. There's one more drawing next Sunday. You have one more chance. Get your pledge in. And thank you to all who have pledged. Should I keep this? Okay.
All right. Well, we have a second special announcement, short but big, and it comes from our ministerial search team. They want to give us all the heads up that they're just about ready to announce our candidate for settled ministry here at UUCW. A special e-news will be out in the next few days, so watch your inbox. We've got some exciting days ahead. I, for one, am going to be watching my email on Tuesday. I can't wait. And I want to highlight a couple things which you might also find printed in your order of service. Register for the Regional Assembly in Madison, April 19th to 20th, coming up soon. There'll be great workshops, speakers, and it's so accessible for us. And that isn't always the case, so this is just a great opportunity. Check the e-news. Registration deadline is Friday, April 12th. And please read Ruben's note in your order of service about today's music. The variety of music today invites us to reflect on where we belong. With all that knowledge has been shared and received, let's settle in for this time that we've set aside just to be here together.
Anticipation, right? I'm so impressed by the work that your ministerial search team has done, and they've been busting their butts, really, to get the news to you as soon as possible. Now it's just around the corner, and I'm so very excited for all of you. Truly, I am. Our theme for the month of April is interdependence, and today we're looking at how our awareness of the multiple ways we are connected may aid in establishing a deep sense of belonging. Our opening words are those of Victoria Safford. Whose are you? Who carries you in their heart? Thinks of you, whether you think of them or not. Whose are you? Who are your people? The ones who make a force field you can almost touch. Whose are you? Who is within your circle of concern? Whose are you? To whom are you responsible and accountable? Whose care is yours to provide? Whose are you? When you look in the mirror in the morning, whose bones do you see? Whose blood runs in your veins? Who are those people stretching back in time beyond memory? Where did you come from? Whose are you? When you walk out of your room, out of your house, into the sunlight of the day, to whom in this wide world do you belong? Where is your allegiance? By whom are you called? Whose are you? At the end of the day, through the longest night, in the valley of the shadow of death and despair, who holds your going out and coming in, your waking and your sleeping? Who, what, holds you in the hollow of its hand? Whose are you? Welcome to this time of worship where we hold one another in the embrace of community. And let's begin by lighting our chalice.
Unitarian Universalists gather. Okay, here we go. When Unitarian Universalists gather, we light a chalice, a flame in an open cup. This ritual and the chalice symbol lift up both the fiery center of this faith, the warmth of community, and the open space for whatever is to come. If you're joining us online, you might contribute to our communal fire by creating a light there, in whatever way you're able. Our chalice lighting words were written by Margaret A. Kipe. I invite you to read them with me. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves, to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other. I don't have anything. Sorry.
Whose are you? How do you feel held? Let's sing together number 1051, a beautiful song reminding us of who we are based on our connection with all that is. Please rise in body and or spirit to sing.
We Good morning. I'd like to invite anybody wanting a better look at our pictures that I'll be showing on this monitor here to come up to the blanket and pillows we have on the floor. My name is Dave Cicero. My pronouns are he and his, and I'm the Director of Lifespan Religious Education here at UU Church West. Have you ever wanted to stand out from the crowd? To be noticed for something special? Well, our book today follows a pebble trying to do just that. Just can't seem to be happy with what or where or with whom it is. Its story was written by Deborah Friedman, who titled it Pebble, a story about belonging. Read today with permission of HarperCollins Publishers. There was once a pebble on a rocky shore. It was small and round and nearly smooth. Each morning, the seabirds sang to the pebble, and each afternoon, the ocean breezes gently teased it. The pebble was warmed by the sun and bathed by the rain. On clear nights, it was dazzled by the stars. Sometimes a storm pounded the shore, and the sea threw itself over the pebble. Well, that was exciting, even a little frightening. Then the winds would die down, the sea would retreat, and the pebble would return to its small and round and nearly smooth life. But the pebble longed for more. If I were a boulder, the pebble said, I might be part of a stone wall, or even the foundation of a great building. You'll never be part of a wall or building, the other rocks pointed out. You're too small for that. Well, if I were a grain of sand, the pebble said, I could be shaped into a sandcastle, or melted into a piece of glass for a fine window. Not in a million years, the other rocks said with a laugh. You're too big for that. Well, what if I had flecks of mica, the pebble said, or a blaze of shining white? Maybe then I would be something special. Oh, stop dreaming, the other rocks advised. You are what you are. Well, the pebble tried hard to accept what the others had said. Still, it felt a longing it could not put a name to. There must be more to life than this, the pebble thought, but I just don't know what. Well, the pebble gave up trying to understand. Life was good, after all. The sky was often a brilliant blue, and the air tasted of salt. Scuttling crabs tickled the pebble, and there was nothing so beautiful as the full moon dancing on the water. But that empty feeling just wouldn't go away. And one day, a boy walked along the shore with his mother and father. The boy let the seawater swirl around his ankles. He watched the gulls swoop overhead, and he laughed as the shell he was reaching for started to move. I wonder how that happened. Warmed by the sun and everything around him, the boy was filled with a sense of wonder. When it was time to leave, the boy asked his parents to wait. It won't be long, he told them. I just need to find something. He wandered down the beach, noticed a smooth shard of beach glass. This will remind me of the color of the sea, the boy said to himself. But it wasn't quite what he was searching for, and he put it down. A little farther along, he spotted a white feather. Ah, this will remind me of the noisy gulls, the boy thought. But the feather wasn't really what he had in mind either. He picked up a shell. This will remind me of the creatures on the shore, he said, and turned the shell over and over in his hands, pondering, considering, and then he saw it. It was a small and round and nearly smooth thing. It fit into the palm, his palm, and the boy knew at once. This will be my pocket friend, he said. It will remind me of the ways of this wonderful day. Remind me always of this wonderful day. He called out to his mother and father, I found what I was looking for. The pebble felt the warmth of the boy's hand all around it. It glowed with delight as the boy ran his fingers over the pebble's smallness and roundness and nearly smoothness. The pebble, too, knew at once, and I have found what I was looking for. For all of you, is that you find and can be grateful for Now, many of our younger people here today will find themselves with their religious education classmates in a few minutes. May they all feel a strong sense of belonging there. But before they leave, Lenore has agreed to come up and light the RE lantern. So come on up, Lenore. And I'm also going to invite the RE leaders here today and any participants to come forward and follow Lenore out in the magically lit, almost magically lit, there it is, RE chalice, while the rest of us sing our recessional. As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go, as you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the sopranos for harmonizing. That's always so nice. As you go, and then those sopranos always come in, and I'm always like, yes, they're here. So I appreciate that. That is a big sense of calling for me to bring me home. And my name is Merritt Tynefield. And happy to be here, happy you're all here, and those at home watching. I've volunteered to deliver the pie to Florida, and Dana just called shotgun, so, yeah. So we're gonna, we can deliver the pie to the, So today's reading is by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's Clouds in Each Paper. And it was written in Thich Nhat Hanh's time, so probably not, it's the way it is. So I will read that. Interdependence, connection, being in relationship have a tremendous effect on our sense of being and our sense of belonging. This reading from Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh is a classic reflection of how we InterBe with all that is. If you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no rain. And without rain, the trees cannot grow. And without trees, But if we combine the prefix inter with the verb to be, we have, without a cloud, we cannot have paper. So we can say that the cloud and the sheet of paper are inter-are. I'll say that again. Without a cloud, we cannot have paper. So we can say that the cloud and the sheet of paper inter-are. If we look into this sheet of paper even more deeply, we can see the sun in it. If the sunshine is not there, the forest cannot grow. In fact, nothing can grow. Even if we cannot grow without sunshine, and so we know that the sunshine is also in this sheet of paper. The paper and the sunshine inter-are. And if we continue to look, we can see the logger who cut the tree and brought it to the mill to be transformed into paper. And we see the wheat. We know that the logger cannot exist without his daily bread, and therefore the wheat that became his bread is also in this sheet of paper. And the logger's father and mother are in it too. When we look in this way, we see that without all these things, this sheet of paper cannot exist.
We all InterBe with one another and with all that is. The more that we can acknowledge and live into that reality, the richer our lives become. And so we set some time aside in most of our services for you to make the connections between us come alive and to truly practice interdependence. So in a moment, you'll be invited to come to this mic to share what is exciting or joyful or painful or worrisome in your life. You can also share something in writing with that yellow slip you received. There's a QR code on the order of service. There's a link in the e-news, and that's shared as you indicate. There's several options for that. So if you'd like to share aloud today, come here to the mic, or if you wish to remain seated, an usher is standing ready to bring you a microphone, so just raise your hand. I'll light a candle for you, and after each sharing, I'll ask you to respond with me, "We hold you in love." So come now. There's so many things we could light candles for. I'll just kind of summarize that today is World Health Day. Candle for the people of Taiwan. Candle for our Muslim siblings who end Ramadan tomorrow with Eid al-Fitr. And of course, a candle for all of you online. Thank you for being here. We know you're there. This is for you and all that you're holding in your lives. And one final candle. All that's been shared. And then Ruben will play for us.
There's a big difference between the question, who are you, and the question, whose are you? One is about identity, and one is about belonging. But that said, finding answers to each of those questions may lead one to a similar answer. Here's a story that is found in Anthony DeMello's book, Taking Flight. A woman in a coma was dying. She suddenly had a feeling that she was taken up to heaven and stood before the judgment seat. "Who are you?" a voice said to her. "I am the wife of the mayor," she replied. "I didn't ask you whose wife you are, but who you are." "Well, I'm the mother of 4 children." "I didn't ask you whose mother you are, but who you are." "Well, I'm a school teacher." "I didn't ask what your profession is, but who you are." And so it went. No matter what she replied, she didn't seem to give a satisfactory answer to the question, "Who are you?" "Well, I am a Christian." "I didn't ask what your religion is, but who are you?" "Well, I'm the one who went to church every day and always helped the poor and the needy." "I didn't ask what you did, but who are you?" Well, she evidently failed the examination, for she was sent back to earth. When she recovered from her illness, she was determined to find out who she was. And that made all the difference.
Did you know that I used to be a dog person? It's true, 3 beloved dogs have lived with me over a span of 30 years. My last dog, Tilly, lived with me in Peterborough, and we would often head out to some park or nature area where she could run free. One Thanksgiving morning, and Thanksgiving in Canada is on a Monday in October. One Thanksgiving morning, we went out to Burnham Woods, where most often we would have the park to ourselves. But this morning, because it was a holiday, there were many other walkers and many other dogs. And as I was approaching a T in a path, just about to take a left, I noticed a father and a son a distant away on the path to my right, playing in the leaves, enjoying a gorgeous morning, one of those perfect autumnal moments. I took in that sweet scene, and then I turned and walked away from them. But within a few seconds, their young dog came charging after us, eager to investigate and play with Tilly. As you might expect, the boy came running after the dog. And the father called, "We're taking this other path, come on back." And the young boy immediately responded, turning and running after his father, waving a stick in the falling leaves. The dog, however, stayed by Tilly's side. I stopped, not wanting to contribute to an even greater distance between dog and owner. "Keep her," yelled the father. "Come on, boy, come, keep her." No response from the dog. "Keeps, let's go, this way, come." Still no response. But then the voice of the young boy rang out, "Keepy, come on!" And like a shot, the dog took off to join his family. It was abundantly clear to whom that dog belonged, or at least to whose call that dog responded. There's a story told by Reverend John Lupo, the minister of University Unitarian Church in Seattle, about an opening worship service at a minister's gathering. He told the story like this. In Seattle, the Interfaith Clergy Organization has a tradition of asking senior colleagues to share their life odysseys. On one particular occasion, a Roman Catholic priest was telling his story, and he said that his life had been in large measure a failure. He remembered the heady days of Vatican II and how hopeful he was and his generation was of how hopeful he and his generation of liberal priests had been that real change was coming to the church he loved so dearly. And yet, these many years later, he felt that the church had, if anything, become hardened and deeply conservative, and his dreams had not been realized. Now, this priest was someone who was valued among his interfaith colleagues, and they were somewhat hurt and stunned by his revelation. And yet one colleague noted, despite the severity of his words, his demeanor seemed quite peaceful and content. How can you claim your life was a failure and yet appear so calm and serene? I know whose I am, replied the priest. I know whose I am. The question, whose are we, in its many manifestations began to roll and ripple through the UU ministerial community. Could we answer this question, whose are we? To what call do we respond? What's the pulse that runs through our veins and gives us life? Who are our people? Who do we serve? What or whom do we call upon to keep our hope alive? To what or whom do we owe our ultimate commitment? And could it be possible that exploring such questions could change and sustain us? You know, I think if you have ever encountered a frightened child who appears to be lost or alone, whether that be in the aisles of the market or in the hall of a school, along some sidewalk, maybe in the foyer of this church, I expect the first question you ask is some version of, whose are you? Where are your parents? Are you lost? Where do you live? What class should you be in? Without a doubt, to that child, it matters greatly whose they are. And it should matter to us as well. We expect and hope that every small child in the world we head out on our own, we leave our homes and our tribes. And in our culture of individualism, we work to create a life that we can call our own. We're driven by the essential question, who am I? Yet if the only question we ever ask is, who am I? We run the risk of believing that we are alone at the center of the universe. This is a lie that living interdependent lives must bust apart. None of us can be a person by ourselves. None of us stands at the center alone. And whether or not we're aware of it, whether or not we ever ask the question, it matters greatly whose we are. Douglas Steer, a Quaker teacher, asks that the ancient question, who am I, must inevitably lead to a deeper one, that of whose am I, because there's no identity outside of relationship. You can't be a person by yourself. So to ask whose am I is to extend the question far beyond that little self-absorbed self and wonder, who needs me? Who loves me? To whom am I accountable? To whom do I answer? Whose life is altered by my choices? With whose life is mine bound up inextricably in obvious or unrecognized ways? Now, I think this question is never fully answered. It just can't be. We're always discovering more connections and accountabilities and relationships, and perhaps it is answered in 99 different ways with just as many names. It's a really deeply personal question about belonging and connection. Whose am I and whose are we? Several years ago, UU ministers delved deeply into this question with a kind of continental-wide conversation. At one gathering, we were asked to sit in pairs facing one another. The instructions were very simple. One asks, "Whose are you?" And the other replies with whatever comes to mind. And then the first is to respond, "Held by the holy," and again ask, "Whose are you?" Waiting for the next reply, and then responding again, "Held by the holy." Answer, respond, ask again, on repeat for a full 5 minutes. And although I can't remember my exact responses, I think it went a little like this for me. I am my own, held by the holy. Whose are you? I am my parents' daughter, held by the holy. Whose are you? I am my friends, held by the holy. Whose are you? I am my dogs, held by the holy. Whose are you? I am Unitarian Universalisms, held by the holy. Whose are you? I am my congregations, held by the holy. Whose are you? I am, and it went on, spiraling deeper and deeper into unknowing and knowing, answers increasingly hard to come by. 5 minutes can be a very long time. My very first class in my very first year in seminary was held in the mud building on the Pacific School of Religion campus. We sat in these chrome-framed student desks with purple fabric slung seats for a class called Introduction to Theological Education. Now, I generally have a terrible memory, but that particular morning remains in sharp focus. My nerves, my attention, my anticipation, all a jangle. The course was taught by Reverend Dr. Lynn Nell Rhodes, who was later to become my advisor, my boss in my part-time job, and my friend. And in that moment, she was intimidating. Dr. Rhodes barely welcomed us before writing on the whiteboard, "To whom or to what are you accountable?" To whom or to what are you accountable? I looked around the room. Clearly, everyone else in the room knew how to answer that question. They all had denominations and home churches who had sent them. I had come to seminary unattached. I wasn't even a UU yet. I was on a personal search. I had only one answer, and I knew it was inadequate. All I could think of was that the only person or thing to whom I felt accountable was my dog, Tilly. My palms began to sweat, and that familiar feeling of being out of place grew in my gut. To whom or to what are you accountable? Whose are you? To whom or to what do we belong in our service, our discipleship, our hearts? When the rubber hits the road, the shit hits the fan, or the ground shifts beneath our feet, to what ultimacy do we cling? In whose hand are we held? Whose are we, and where do we belong? It's some version of keepy, come on. Thankfully, there are many great answers that lie at the heart of this faith. We belong to life. We belong to our connections and our relationships. We belong to the search for wholeness. We belong to a world chock full of beautiful diversity, which, as expressed in today's music, enriches our lives. We belong to the call for justice and compassion. We belong because we are all part of the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. You know, on Friday night, I don't know how many of you were there. I was up high in the balcony. I know Barbara Farr was there. But on Friday night, a large crowd gathered to attend Jim Wallace's book tour talk in, what's it called, Whitefish Bay? That was called. Anyway, he was there to talk about white Christian religion. He had many important things, religion and nationalism. He talked about the religion, that religion couldn't really be a good religion if it had white in it. He had many important things to say. One of which was that it was the job of good religion, if we are to combat a culture of fear and hatred, to create communities of belonging. Now, I take that as a clarion call to Unitarian Universalism, to create the beloved community where all belong in an interdependent web of connection and accountability. We have a saving message for today's world. And to find an answer, however temporary and evolving it might be, it's a worthy practice, a holy practice, to wonder whose we are. Because when we know our belonging, we create spaces where others can belong as well. In my wondering, I've come to trust that when I touch or hear a correct for me answer, I recognize it. It's like finding that perfect stone. I know that I belong to some unnameable yet completely recognizable force that lies both within and without. And while it can't be pinned down or directed, I know it speaks to me and directs me. Is it a who that I belong to? I don't know. I do know it to have a voice, not unlike the voice of that small boy calling his dog. When it calls, I recognize it from a deep place within myself, and hopefully I respond, because it calls for liberation for all, and it reminds me of the responsibility that such freedom demands of me. It says that love is always a better choice than hate. It says that my individuality is validated and even possible only within the context of community. It says that life requires courage and honesty. It always comes in service of beauty and justice and joy and wholeness. My heart knows what I serve, but poetry perhaps expresses it best. So in closing, hear these words of Rilke from his Book of Hours, Love Poems to God. Perhaps it could also be called Love Poems to That Which We Belong. You are the future, the red sky before sunrise over the fields of time. You are the cock's crow when night is done. You are the dew and the bells of matins, maiden, stranger, mother, death. You create yourself in ever-changing shapes that rise from the stuff of our days, unsung, unmourned, undescribed, like a forest we never knew. You are the deep innerness of all things, the last word that can never be spoken. To each of us, you reveal yourself differently, to the ship as coastline, to the shore as a ship. We are held by what we love, and in turn, it calls to us. Keepy, come on. May it be so, and may it always be so. Amen.
that UUCW helps address human needs and advance social justice is through our Split the Plate program. Each month, we give half of all undesignated offerings to a local nonprofit to help us live our UU values and serve our community. Since April is the month with Earth Day, and on the recommendation of Julie Toman, our Split the Plate partner for April is Plastic Free Milwaukee. This is a program which operates within Milwaukee Riverkeeper, an organization which is well known to most people at UUCW. Every bit of plastic that has ever been created still exists. We depend on plastic, and now we're drowning in it. In addition to creating safety problems during production, many chemical additives that give plastic products desirable performance properties also have permanent human health effects. To combat this, Plastic Free Milwaukee educates the public via social media channels, a newsletter, and community events. Their plastics education toolkit provides a menu of resources which educators are invited to adapt based on their unique student and classroom needs. The H2O Refill Program supports Milwaukee's movement for social justice by donating reusable water bottles and by providing water refill stations at local marches, rallies, and other events. Their lake-friendly program supports and gives recognition to restaurants, bars, and cafes that are removing as much plastic as possible from their daily operations. To help support Plastic Free Milwaukee, go to UUCW's website, Donate tab, and select Split the Plate from the menu, or text or mail your donation today using the information found here. And today I thank you for your generosity to Plastic Free Milwaukee. We will now gratefully receive your offering.
Please join me in the words of dedication found in your order of service and on the screen. To the work of this community, which is to ground ourselves in love and joy and to act for inclusion and justice, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. Just put it, Kathy. This poem by Mary Oliver seems to me to be a beautiful expression of knowing where one belongs. It's called What Is There Beyond Knowing? What is there beyond knowing that keeps calling to me? I can't turn in any direction, but it's there. I don't mean the leaves, grip and shine, or even the thrushes' silk song, but that far-off fires, for example, of the stars, heaven's slowly turning theater of light, or the wind playful with its breath, or time that's always rushing forward or standing still in the same way. What shall I say? Moment. What I know, I could put into a pack as if it were bread and cheese and carry it on one shoulder. Important and honorable, but so small. While everything else continues, unexplained and unexplainable. How wonderful it is to follow a thought quietly to its logical end. I've done this a few times, but mostly I just stand in the dark field, in the middle of the world, breathing in and out. Life so far doesn't have any other name but breath and light, wind and rain. If there's a temple, I haven't found it yet. I simply go on drifting in the heaven of grass and the weeds. Many people, like Mary Oliver, feel that where they belong is in a place of knowing earth and the natural world as home. And so let's sing of that, a beautiful song of praise sung to a tune by Brahms. It's number 309, Earth is Our Homeland. Please rise in body and or spirit to sing. Please remain standing for our benediction. This wonderful time together, belonging together, has come to an end. I know it was a bit long today. Thank you for hanging in there. Take a moment to breathe in the love and support you find here. And if you're comfortable doing so, please join hands for our closing words, which also express a deep connection to the earth. They're a poem written by Margaret Atwood, The Moment. Let me go to the cellist to get it. Margaret Atwood's The Moment. The moment when, after many years of hard work and a long voyage, you stand in the center of your room, house, half-acre, square mile, island, country, knowing at last how you got there and say, I own this, is the same moment when the trees unloose their soft arms around you. The birds take back their language, the cliffs fissure and collapse. The air moves back from you like a wave and you can't breathe. No, they whisper, you own nothing. You were a visitor, time after time, climbing the hill, planting the flag, proclaiming, we never belonged to you. You never found us. It's always the other way around. It's always the other way around, dear friends. The world and its life never belong to us. We belong to it. And more about that next week when we celebrate Earth Day. For now, I invite you to return to your seats as the choir sings again. Blessed be Ashe.